Get out. 2 words. Spoken without shouting, without emotion, and without looking up from the mahogany desk that cost more than a Ferrari. The young woman in the designer skirt burst into tears, dropping her notepad. But sir, I only... You breathed too loud, Joon-Ho said, finally lifting his eyes. They were dark, cold, and empty, like looking down a barrel. I asked for silence, you gave me noise. Severance is at the front desk. If you're still in this building in 5 minutes, security will throw you out the window. She ran, they always ran. Joon-Ho sighed, rubbing the space between his eyebrows where a permanent headache lived. That was the 5th executive assistant this week, the 100th in a year. The HR department at K-Corp was terrified of him. The board of directors whispered that he was insane. They were wrong, he wasn't insane, he was a predator forced to wear a suit. Joon-Ho, 29, wasn't just the CEO of Seoul's largest tech conglomerate. He was the dragon head of the Seoul Syndicate. His hands were stained with things that soap couldn't wash off. He lived in a world of betrayal, violence, and noise, constant screaming noise. Everyone wanted something, everyone lied, everyone was a threat. He had built this soundproof office on the top floor of the Silver Tower for one reason: silence. He craved it like a drug. He needed perfection because in his other life, the life of knives and shadows, a single mistake meant death. Sir, his bodyguard, Kenji, stepped out of the shadows. That was the last candidate. The agency says they have no one left to send. Fine, Joon-Ho stood up, walking to the floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking the glitter of Seoul. I'll work alone, clear the floor, I don't want to see a single soul until morning. Understood, the cleaning crew is scheduled for 2 a.m. I'll tell them to skip your office. No, Joon-Ho said, loosening his tie. Let them clean, just tell them if I hear a vacuum I'll break it. Kenji bowed and left. Joon-Ho poured a glass of whiskey, the amber liquid burning his throat. He sat in the dark, the city lights reflecting in his eyes, waiting for the silence to heal him. But the silence didn't come, the demons in his head were too loud. The memories of what he had to do to secure his territory last week, the blood, the screams, played on a loop. He closed his eyes, leaning his head back, waiting for the dawn or death, whichever came first. And then he heard it. It wasn't a vacuum, it wasn't the clatter of a bucket. It was a hum, low, vibrationally rich and dripping with soul. Joon-Ho's eyes snapped open, his first instinct was rage. He had given an order, absolute silence. Someone was defying him. He stood up, his hand instinctively brushing the hidden holster under his jacket, and moved toward the door like a panther stalking prey. He ripped the heavy oak door open. Who the hell? The words died in his throat. She was standing in the middle of the hallway, illuminated by the emergency track lighting. She was wearing the shapeless grey jumpsuit of the night cleaning crew, oversized and ugly. Her hair was wrapped in a simple scarf. She was pushing a mop bucket, her back to him. She hadn't heard the door open because she had cheap headphones over her ears, and she was singing. It wasn't a K-pop song. It wasn't classical. It was old-school R&B, something heavy with pain and hope. Her voice cracked on the high note, not from lack of skill but from an excess of feeling. It was raw. It was unpolished. It was the most beautiful sound Joon-Ho had ever heard. He stood there, the feared Mafia boss who terrified 100 secretaries, and he forgot to breathe. The headache that had plagued him for 10 years suddenly vanished. The noise in his head stopped. Her voice washed over him like warm water, soothing the jagged edges of his soul. She spun around with the mop, dancing a little two-step, and froze. She saw him. Her eyes went wide. She yanked the headphones off, the mop clattering to the floor. Oh God, she gasped. I'm so sorry, I thought this floor was empty. Please don't fire me, I need this job. I really, really need this job. She was black, young, maybe 24. She looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes that matched his own. But her eyes, they were warm, terrified but warm. Joon-Ho stared at her. He knew he should be angry. He knew he should call security. But all he could think about was the silence in his head, and how much he hated that she had stopped singing. "What is your name?" he asked. His voice sounded rusty to his own ears. "Stephanie," she whispered, trembling. "Stephanie Jones, please, sir, I'll leave, I'll never make a sound again." Joon-Ho took a step forward. Stephanie took a step back, gripping the mop handle like a weapon. "Do it again," Joon-Ho said. Stephanie blinked. "Clean the floor, I will, I promise." "No," Joon-Ho said, his dark eyes locking onto hers. "Sing." Stephanie stared at him like he had grown a second head. "Excuse me." "Sing the song," Joon-Ho commanded. It wasn't a request. It was an order from a man used to being obeyed. "The one you were just singing, finish it." I can't," Stephanie stammered. "I'm working, it's unprofessional." Joon-Ho reached into his pocket, pulled out a clip of cash, more money than Stephanie made in 3 months, and tossed it onto her mop bucket. "Sing." Stephanie looked at the money, then at his intense, desperate face. She didn't know who this man was, she just knew he was the boss on the 50th floor, but she saw something in his eyes that she recognized. Deep, crushing loneliness. She took a shaky breath. She needed that money. Her grandmother's medication wasn't cheap. So standing in the hallway of a billion-dollar company holding a dirty mop, Stephanie closed her eyes and sang. She sang the rest of the verse, her voice gaining strength, filling the sterile, cold hallway with warmth. Joon-Ho leaned against the doorframe, closed his eyes, and for the first time in his life he felt peace. When she finished, the silence that followed wasn't heavy, it was electric. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and see it through to the end, because this gets wilder. We're always curious, where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. "Come inside," Joon-Ho said, turning back to his office. "Sir, you're not the hallway cleaner anymore," Joon-Ho said over his shoulder. "You're promoted, you clean this office, only this office, and you sing while you do it." Is that a real job?" Joon-Ho sat back down at his desk, looking at the city that suddenly didn't seem so dark. "It is now." For 3 weeks the arrangement held. Every night at 2 a.m., Stephanie arrived at the penthouse office. The security guards looked at her differently now, with fear and confusion, because the dragon head had given orders that she was not to be touched, not to be searched, not to be spoken to. She would come in, lock the door and clean, and she would sing. At first it was awkward. Joon-Ho would sit at his desk, working through stacks of documents detailing smuggling routes and territory disputes, while Stephanie dusted his bookshelves, humming nervously. But slowly the walls began to crack. "You're off-key," Joon-Ho said one night, not looking up from a file about a rival gang encroaching on Incheon. "I am not," Stephanie shot back, forgetting to be afraid. "That's called jazz improvisation. You wouldn't know soul if it bit you." Joon-Ho looked up. A tiny, almost invisible smirk touched his lips. "I know precision, that was messy." "Life is messy," Stephanie said, spraying Windex on the glass table. "Only robots like things perfect." "I am not a robot." "Could have fooled me. You haven't moved from that chair in 4 hours. Do you even eat?" Joon-Ho frowned. He realized he hadn't eaten since yesterday. 10 minutes later, Stephanie placed a Tupperware container on his priceless mahogany desk. "What is this?" he asked, eyeing the plastic suspiciously. "Jollof rice, my grandma made it. It's spicy, so don't cry." Joon-Ho hesitated. He never ate food he didn't source himself. Poison was a common retirement plan in his line of work. But looking at Stephanie with her messy bun and defiant eyes, he took the fork. He took a bite. The heat exploded in his mouth, flavorful and rich. It tasted like home, not his home, which was cold and empty, but a home he wished he had. "It's acceptable," he said. Stephanie laughed. It was a bright, bubbling sound that made his chest ache. "Acceptable, that recipe has survived 3 wars, it's legendary." They ate together in the silence of the 50th floor. For an hour he wasn't the Mafia boss, and she wasn't the janitor. They were just 2 tired people hiding from the world. "Why do you sing?" he asked her later, watching the moonlight catch the curve of her neck. "Because it's the only thing that's mine," Stephanie said softly, looking out the window. "My rent belongs to the landlord. My time belongs to the cleaning company. My worries belong to my sick grandma, but my voice, that's mine, nobody can take it, nobody can evict it." Joon-Ho looked at his hands, hands that owned half the city but held nothing of value. You're wrong, he said quietly. You own this room. When you sing, you own everything. The air shifted. The distance between them felt suddenly, dangerously short. Joon-Ho stood up, drawn to her like a moth to a flame. He wanted to reach out to see if her skin was as warm as her voice. Sudden lights flashed from the street below. A phone rang on his desk, the red phone, the one that only rang for emergencies. The spell broke. Joon-Ho answered it, his face hardened, the mask slamming back into place. Speak. He listened for 3 seconds. They found the warehouse, burn it, leave no witnesses. He hung up and looked at Stephanie. The warmth was gone from his eyes, replaced by the dead, cold look of the dragon head. Leave, he said sharply. Joon-Ho, Stephanie asked, stepping forward. Is everything okay? I said get out, he roared, slamming his hand on the desk. Go back to your world, janitor, you don't belong here. Stephanie flinched as if he'd hit her. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She grabbed her bucket and walked out with her head high. Joon-Ho watched her go, his heart pounding. He had to push her away. If she stayed, she would see the monster, and he couldn't bear for her to look at him with fear instead of warmth. He didn't see her for 3 days. He banned the cleaning crew. He sat in his office, the silence now deafening, the darkness suffocating. He couldn't work, he couldn't sleep. He played the memory of her song over and over in his head, but it was fading. On the 4th night he broke. He called security. Where is the cleaner, Stephanie Jones? Sir, she resigned, the guard said nervously. 2 days ago, she said the working environment was hostile. Joon-Ho felt a physical blow to his chest. She was gone. Find her, Joon-Ho commanded. I don't care what it takes, find her address, now. It took 20 minutes. She lived in a crumbling apartment block in the foreign district. Joon-Ho didn't take his driver. He took his fastest car, a blacked-out sedan, and tore through the rainy streets of Seoul. He wasn't thinking about the syndicate or the war brewing with the Viper clan. He was thinking about her smile, her rice, her voice. He pulled up to her building. It was a dump. Broken windows, graffiti. Rage boiled in his gut. She shouldn't be living here. She should be in a palace. He got out of the car, rain soaking his suit. He was about to storm the front door when he saw it. 3 men in leather jackets were dragging a woman out of the building. She was kicking, screaming. Let me go, it was Stephanie. Your grandmother owes the Vipers a lot of money, sweetheart, one of the men sneered, grabbing her hair. Since the old hag can't pay, you're going to work it off. Joon-Ho didn't think, he didn't plan, he reacted. He crossed the street in 3 strides. The first Viper didn't even see him coming. Joon-Ho grabbed the man's wrist, snapped it with a sickening crunch and kicked him in the throat. The man collapsed, choking. The other 2 spun around, pulling knives. Do you know who I am? Joon-Ho asked. His voice was low, terrifying thunder. The men squinted in the rain. Then the color drained from their faces. They saw the dragon pin on his lapel. They recognized the cold, dead eyes of the Reaper of Seoul. Dragon head, one whispered. You touched what is mine, Joon-Ho said. It wasn't a fight, it was an execution of skill. In 10 seconds both men were on the ground, groaning, broken. Joon-Ho turned to Stephanie. She was pressed against the brick wall, shivering, rain plastering her hair to her face. She was staring at him, not with gratitude but with horror. She looked at the men on the ground, the blood on Joon-Ho's knuckles. Who are you? She whispered. You're not just a CEO. Joon-Ho stepped toward her, reaching out a hand. Stephanie, No, she shrank away. You're one of them, you're a gangster. I am the man who needs you, Joon-Ho said, his voice cracking. I am the man who can't sleep without you. You hurt people, she cried, backing away. My brother died because of men like you. I protect what is mine, Joon-Ho shouted, the rain mixing with the fury on his face. And I decided 3 nights ago that you are mine. I tried to let you go, I can't. You don't own me, Stephanie said, her voice shaking but strong. I am not a building, I am not a territory. You can't just claim me. Then let me earn you, Joon-Ho pleaded. He dropped to his knees, the great dragon head kneeling in the mud and trash of a back alley. I will fix this, I will fix all of it, just don't look at me like I'm a monster. Stephanie looked down at him. She saw the blood on his hands, but she also saw the man who had eaten her grandmother's rice and looked at her like she was the son. I can't be with a criminal, Joon-Ho, she said softly. I can't live in the dark. Then I will burn the dark down, Joon-Ho vowed. He looked up at her. Give me time, 6 months, go to your grandmother, leave Seoul, I will send you money. I don't want your blood money. It's not blood money, it's severance, he said, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. For the best janitor I ever had, take it, go safe. If I survive this, I will come for you, and I will be the man you deserve. He stood up, placed his jacket over her shoulders and turned to his car. He didn't look back. He couldn't. 6 months passed. The underworld of Seoul was in chaos. The dragon head had gone mad. He wasn't expanding territory, he was liquidating it. He sold the casinos. He shut down the smuggling rings. He handed evidence of the Viper clan to the police, breaking the ultimate code of silence. He was attacked 3 times. He took a bullet to the shoulder. He was stabbed in the side. But he didn't stop. He purged his company. He fired the corrupt board members. He turned K-Corp into a legitimate fortress of clean energy and security. He worked 20 hours a day. And every time he wanted to give up, every time the violence threatened to pull him back under, he replayed the memory of a song in a hallway. 6 months and 1 day later, Stephanie was wiping down the counter of a small jazz bar in Busan. She had moved south, used the severance to get her grandmother surgery and get herself a vocal coach. She was singing on weekends now. It wasn't much, but it was safe. But she missed him. God, she missed him. She missed the intense, broken man who liked her jollof rice. She was closing up, humming that same R&B song. The bell above the door chimed. We're closed, Stephanie called out, not looking up. Even for an old friend. The voice hit her like a physical wave, deep, smooth, but lighter than before. Stephanie dropped her rag. She looked up. Joon-Ho stood in the doorway. He wasn't wearing the black armor of the Mafia anymore. He was wearing a soft grey sweater and jeans. He looked tired. He had a new scar on his cheek, but his eyes were clear. The shadows were gone. Joon-Ho, she breathed. He walked toward her, stopping at the counter. He placed a single object on the wood. It was a newspaper. The headline read, Dragon Syndicate dismantled. K-Corp CEO announces fully transparent charity foundation. I burned it down, he said softly. Just like I promised, I'm just a businessman now. A boring, legal businessman with a lot of enemies and a very lonely office. Stephanie looked at the paper, then at him. Tears pricked her eyes. You did that for me. For us, Joon-Ho corrected. And for me, you were right, I hated the noise, I wanted peace, but I realized, I don't want silence anymore, Stephanie. He reached across the counter and took her hand. His grip was warm, solid. I want your song. I want it every morning and every night. I walked past 100 perfect women, I fired the whole world, just to find the one voice that makes me feel human. Stephanie squeezed his hand back. You're crazy, she laughed, a tear slipping down her cheek. You almost got yourself killed. I would die 1,000 times to hear you sing again, Joon-Ho whispered. So, did I earn you? Stephanie didn't answer with words. She walked around the counter, grabbed the lapels of his soft sweater and pulled him down. When she kissed him, it wasn't tentative, it was acclaiming. You're hired, she whispered against his lips, but you're on probation, one mistake and I fire you. Joon-Ho smiled, a real wide smile that reached his eyes. He picked her up, sitting her on the counter, burying his face in her neck. Understood, boss. I fired the whole world to find you. Imagine a love so strong it burns down an empire. If Joon-Ho's transformation gave you chills, smash that like button. Do you think Stephanie was right to make him wait 6 months? Or should she have stayed and fought with him? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories about ruthless kings bowing to their queens, subscribe to Revenge Satellite. Next up, a ruthlessly cold surgeon refuses to save anyone until his enemy's daughter walks into the ER. You don't want to miss it. See you in the next shadow.